IVF, right? So many women are going through it. What have been your struggles? What has been the painful part of it, apart from the jobs struggle because you're working very, very hard? But
Mhm.
when every time it's not successful, how would you look past it? As now, because with IVF, and I know how this feels. You do it and you expect to have a positive result. When each time you get a negative result, how do you take it?
The number of factors, you're really being bombarded on all sides. I started IVF, I'm 45 now, and I started IVF at 40. So you've passed that stage when you can get any help. So firstly, we did it privately from the beginning. It's very expensive. And because we're what's termed in the industry as geriatric, from a gynecological point of view, geriatric, that is the term. So the chance of success, the statistics is actually nearer to zero than one. It's hard to get your mind around it.
Yes, yes,
They explain it to you. But because no one can play God, you still want to try.
yeah, absolutely.
Statistically, it's nearer to zero. So one of the first things that became immediately apparent is, why aren't people talking about this? Like, why am I finding out in my 40s? And it's ironic because my dad, he's retired now, but he was an obs and gynae, so he was a gynecologist. So I used to run back to him and say, they just told me this, is it true? And he went, So why are they teaching this at schools? So for instance, I don't know if many of your viewers know this, like, whereas a man reproductively, every time he produces new sperm, a woman, you're born with all the eggs you will ever have. In fact, your eggs are older than you because your eggs are formed when you're still inside your mother's tummy.
Yeah.
And so many women don't know this. Anyone that knows me knows this, because I am not shy to talk about my IVF, because I want to give back, because the way that we suffered from the lack of information and just finding out all this stuff quite late on. And so when people say, oh yeah, there are all these stories of people who got pregnant at 40 and 50 and 60, there's so many factors. If the person's had a child beforehand, their body has changed anyway. They could go on and have kids in their 40s. And you hear stories of people who've had kids in their 40s and 50s, and what they don't tell you, which we found out in the IVF clinic, is once you've had a few failures, they then think psychologically, they present to you the option of egg donation.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are people who've gotten pregnant, had children that look like their own, but they're not. So I can go and choose an egg from a woman who looks like me, my background. You can choose all sorts, education level, whatever. It's fertilized with my husband's sperm, and I could be pregnant tomorrow if we chose that route. So you're thinking, oh, so I thought anyone can get pregnant at this stage. You hear all these stories of people getting pregnant in their 50s and 60s. No, it's this is the information. So one of the things that was really hard to comprehend was the fact that we just felt, wow, we should have really known this, earlier on to really understand this. We're learning this now, because then that fear sets in, and it's a bit like I've been on a Russian roulette table. You just keep throwing that dice, praying to God that the next round will work and the next round will work, and that's hard. The other thing, when there are two of you going through anything, whether it's grief, pain, it complicates things, because you're two individual souls, which means you're going to grieve in different ways.
Yes.
And often that becomes a source of conflict. I think statistically you hear, there's a high percentage of people who break up whenever there's something like, like a loss of a child, death of a child, or, IVF. And that's because it's difficult to manage your grief and the other person's grief. But a lot of that is, I suppose, you project. I had to give my husband space to grieve in his own way, and he had to give me space to grieve in my own way, and then we had to come together. But we did that with counselling. I've always been big on, mentoring and coaching. I've always been a mentor. I've coached. So immediately I said to my husband, he was quite reluctant. I said, we're going to book in, somebody to guide us through this, a counsellor. We're going to find someone qualified. We tried a female and a male, because sometimes there are some topics I find that he was just more open if it was a man that was sitting in front of us. Yes. So we had that throughout the entire process, because every time that you were told that it didn't work out, you grieved. Like, you do grieve. That entire grief process occurs. And so it was, we made up our minds last year that we weren't going to have any more sessions. At that point, we still had one session remaining, you know, with the clinic. And we're like, no, we're not really, no, it's fine. And it was interesting because, you know, again, how the universe works. We'd grieved because when you end your sessions, if you're thinking about adoption or anything like that, they insist that you've had a clear 6-month break since the very last IVF related thing that you did, because you have to grieve, and whether you believe it or not, it happens. Nobody bypasses that process. And that is what happened. And then at the end of the 6 months, we began to talk about options, and I still had it in my head because I'm of African heritage. So there's a lot of messages and programming you have about if you're a childless woman and blah, blah, blah. So I still had it in my head, whereas my husband was very clear that we were complete as a family of 2. We're incomplete. You know, we need to, you know. So we went down the adoption route, and we'd kind of started the process, spoken to people, chosen an agency. And again, the universe, because I'd sold the business, and then immediately the next day we'd booked a trip away. We'd gone away for 2 weeks just to relax, rest the mind. I was still getting these attacks, these headaches. I'd booked in to see a neurosurgeon and a neurologist for when we got back. And then we had this session. We meant to get this phone call from the adoption people. They wanted to speak to my husband. They have to hear from you individually. You both have to speak to them individually. They have to make sure you're both agreed this is what you want to do. And in fairness, he wasn't sold on it. So they want to speak to him. And the day of the conversation, something, they messed up and they forgot to contact us. They forgot. Again, the universe working. That night, had a phone call from a hospital in Bournemouth. My husband's only brother was in hospital, and he was in a coma. And the next day, my husband went with his dad, and they ended up having to turn off the life support machine for his brother. So he died. I felt it turned everything upside down for the family. But through all of that pain, we could still see that we were very blessed, because I was free, as in unencumbered by my work and all of that. So there's a lot that I could do for my family, like just be with them. And it was just before Christmas. Remember, the business sold in November. So just take over and you know, give them a Christmas, so they don't have to worry about anything. Sort, you know, the paperwork, the mess that comes with all of that, with having to bring a dead body home and store it over the Christmas period, you know, all of that. It was awful. But something happened in my husband's mind and in his heart, and he had a conversation with me. I think something about, you know, when a soul leaves this earth, and he wanted to use that last IVF session that we had, which we had closed the door on a year before. So this period, this enforced COVID-19 rest period, has put my body, my mind, because as I mentioned, I was able to see the neurologist, get a diagnosis. You know, I'm taking, you know, those steps in terms of my sleep, my nutrition. I'm in control of that in a way that I've never been. You know, exercise. I'm a different person now to then. And then we're having this session, which we're actually undergoing now, just so you just so you know. But we're very much at peace with whatever happens. I think it was a case of when you're grieving the sudden loss, you know, of Scott, and when you're grieving, you're trying to make sense of what's going on in the world. And we just thought, if there's a chance for new life to come into the world, we'll take that. But we'll be on the same page now in terms of, I know in my heart, if it doesn't happen, our family of 2 is complete. God makes everybody in different shapes and sizes, and same for families, and, you know, same for your purpose. So that's a beautiful thing that's happened, and it just couldn't have happened if I didn't have this time and space, you know?
Wow, Vivienne, you know what's amazing is that I talk about time. I said to everyone, time is something you have, but it's up to you to use it the way you want. And it's there for us. but how we use it is up to us as well. And your story emphasizes all of that. It emphasizes time, emphasizes well-being, emphasizes spreading awareness as well, and finding yourself. And what I love about your story about sharing your pain is that you share your pain in a way that your voice is on a vision to help others. Because so many people out there are on this journey of pain, of fertility pain, and they just don't know when is it to let go, or do we keep going? I know
Yeah.
so many people on that journey. But in your world, you've realized that you needed to let go of things. You needed to do it in stages. Because what I've also realized with my own chronic illness is that when we take on too much, the body rejects every other thing. No matter how much we try to force it in, the body just has to say, I can't. I just can't. It's too much for me to handle. And people say, do you feel guilty that you let go of other things? I always say no, because the body is the only thing that we have to listen to. And when the body is happy, the body is able to take in things. The body is able to receive in a very natural way. I've never, I'm just so I'm always amazed that it's been years since I've had a sickle cell crisis. I used to be a girl. I used to be so sick, and I was sick, sick, sick. And you couldn't just look at me and without me being sick. But it's when I started to just take this, relax, and start, listening to my body. I started realizing, wow, I could actually heal myself. And then you actually find peace with your body, because you actually, initially, I started hating myself. I was like, why can't I swim? I've just started swimming. I started swimming a month ago. I've never been able to swim because everyone have always told me you're never going to swim. And you know what? No true fault, no truth, anyone's fault. They told me because every time they saw me in the water, I get out of the water, and the ambulance is waiting for me to take me to the hospital.
Oh,
So it's like, why would we want that for you? And I started swimming again. I started doing things I love, which I never in my wildest dream believe I could go to the gym. No, I could swim. But it's because I started listening. And I think with your journey, not only are you sharing a deep story of your IVF stroke, you're also sharing a story about the importance of the body, about having to balance time, having to understand when things are too much. Because when things are too much, we keep going. We think, oh, if I miss a day, who's going to do that job? I say to people, you don't understand my life. You don't have a chronic illness. That's why you are able to do it. I've had business trip planned, and business trip had to be cancelled because I couldn't go on that journey. Then I realized that when you have a chronic illness, your body comes first and you come first. And I'm happy the way you've done it. In everything you're doing now, how are you helping spread the awareness for other people going through similar journey?
being very vocal. People are so shy about talking about things. I think that, again, I really owe a lot of credit to my parents. They really are ahead of their time in terms of how they think. I didn't realize that. I didn't always appreciate that. So if they're ever watching this, love you, mum, love you, dad. But, they're not embarrassed about that. Like other family members would be really, really embarrassed. Like, you can't talk about this, can't talk about that. I'll share with you, I mentioned the business partner pain. The reason we found the road back to forgiveness is she actually had something mentally, like a psychosis, something had gone wrong. And if anyone's ever seen someone having, a psychotic episode where they, you're the enemy and they begin to attack you and whatever. And I thought something's wrong, but nobody in the family wanted to. They said, "Oh, be quiet. What are you saying? Don't ruin her good name." I reached out to her family. I mean, she's older than me, significantly older than me. So anyone that's from Africa land will know that, I'm calling her auntie. So there's a lot of, I'm not going to be disrespectful. But the family was just, no, they don't want to talk about it. So it got really bad where she was attacking me and whatever. And not just me, I found out later, other people. And that was part of why it was easy to heal. Because once I realized, oh, this is a mental health issue. This wasn't personal. It's not a bad person. This is a person that was unwell. Yeah. And I just wish people would talk more. So my family, my mum and dad, they said, talk. People, people need to hear this. So I talk to people. There are so many people who I know who, for instance, that they've had children. And Anne, They don't want to tell me. I'm like, why don't you want to tell me? Because you'll be upset. Why would I be upset? And so I go and I speak to them. I've been helping people who were secretly going through IVF. I'm like, why are you secretly going through IVF? They feel that their body has failed. They're not womanly enough or manly enough. I'm like, what is this? You know, so by talking to people and just them seeing me, being able to talk about it at a dinner party, in the living room, at a conference, at a networking event, I don't care who's there. What happens is it begins to take away the stigma, you know, about all of this. And people, you see in their eyes, especially men, it's great. I can tell if I'm talking and there's a guy in the room who's going through IVF, just from the look. And eventually he'll make a beeline or I'll make a beeline and we'll have a conversation. And he's just so grateful to have someone that you can talk to that will be able to understand what they're going through. And it's not anything to be, you know, embarrassed about at all. Not at all. There's other pain in my family. You know, I'm the eldest of a big family, and the last two, my brother and my sister, are disabled. And, you know, you asked me a question about, you know, what motivates me. They're my superheroes. Like my mum, my dad, and my last two siblings. Whilst I love all the rest, my last two siblings, because there's no such thing as can't. They were told, you know, or we were told that my brother Anthony would be a vegetable for his entire life. He has severe cerebral palsy, severe, you know, can't walk, can't talk, shaking. That man he owns his own home, lives independently. I mean, he has to, most of us would cry if we get like 5 rejection letters if we're applying for jobs. He applies for hundreds, over 1,000. He knows most of them he's not going to get. He's just looking for the one because he didn't want to be depending on the state. You know, mentally, he's completely fine. His body is what's restricting him. He's gone on to do a 1st degree, 2nd degree, worked his entire life. He drives. The first time I got in his car, I was embarrassed because I couldn't hide my fear. Like, how can you drive? Like, what? Is it an electronic car? He said, no, it's a normal car. The only difference is that they put a knob on the steering wheel, so it somehow regulates the shakes. And then it's one of these, like, not manual, the electric, whatever they call it. You know, the cars that you don't do manually. I sat in the car. Yes, I sat in the car with Anthony the first time. It's like I had rigor mortis. I was so scared. I couldn't believe my eyes. My brain couldn't take in what my eyes were seeing. Yeah. But he drove. He lives near Nottingham, and he's driven to London to see me, and parked in the West End, and come into the salon to see me. And the only modification is that it's an automatic car, and a robot arm at the back gives the wheelchair in and out, you know? And now his disability is with age, because everything is like this all the time, the body wears out faster. So with age, he's permanently in the wheelchair. But now he has a sort of a van, and his wheelchair goes in the back and becomes the front seat. But this man is just my role model, because he's my baby brother. I saw him when he was born, and he has never let anything stop him. So when I meet people who are telling me, I couldn't find work, I'm a single mum, I just pulled the Anthony card out. So I said, please, before we go any further, this is someone who can't walk, can't talk, can't think, and this is what he's doing. And it usually inspires them. It isn't to make them feel crap, it's to say to them, it's about perspective. It's about how you see the world and the kind of life you want to live and the legacy you want to leave, you know? So I find with pain, and, you know, for me, I don't struggle with it like I used to when I was younger and finding my way. Usually I think, okay, the universe is saying something. Like sometimes the universe will nudge you, you know, in a certain direction. If you find a still place, you can hear, you talked earlier about the voice, you can hear the message. But some people like me, you just go, not listening. And then the universe says, there you go, body's finished. Nudge. Are you listening now? Basically, yeah. So I always see it as a good thing, because I believe the universe is a friendly place. That's my belief. And so when things are happening that I can't explain, I often talk to people about the caterpillar to butterfly moments, where you're in a cocoon and it's dark and it's scary and what's going on, but you have no idea. You're about to break free and have these wings, and you're this beautiful creature, and you're flying away. But you do need to find that stillness and listen to your body, to your what your soul is telling you. If you find it through prayer, then fantastic. If you find it through meditation or through, you know, going out and being with nature, and you hit the nail on the head. This thing about fear and guilt, that is what the main source of pain is, your own pain, your own thoughts about guilt and fear. And if you can overcome that and learn to really love and accept yourself more, you'll find so much more joy in life, you know?
Oh my goodness, Vivienne, I could be with you all day. I really do. Because your story inspires many, inspires myself, because even when you talk about your brother, you know, it really hits a nail, because I think, yeah, sometimes you're going through your own pain and to someone really hits the nail and reminds you that, yeah, you're going through that pain, but remember, there are other people who are in worse of situation. Not that we compare, but all knowing that there are other people who are in worse off but doing as equally and getting on with their day. That keeps you on a, on a treadmill. I think for me, that kept me on it, really assessing myself and taking away the pity of being in hospital with all the IV, with all the thing. It just took it away. I just took it away. I just had to take ownership of my own life. And I said, enough is enough. I can do this. I'm tired of hearing I can't. And I changed my I can't to can. I could stay all day here with you, Vivienne, because your story inspires me so much. And I really, just because of the time, I should have split this into two parts, because you have so much to tell us. And I'm sure I'll be contacting you again to tell us the next step and seeing how things go. We'll be putting you in our prayers, because we want everything to work out well for you. You're an amazing woman. Your story, I think you're picked for this particular pain because you're the right person to help the world.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, you are picked for this particular pain, because with pain, you need the right person to go out there and help multiple people who are going to go through that journey. So even if that your journey is not joyful, your joy will come from others. I just believe that anything is possible as long as you let your mind relax. You need to let it relax, and you need to take a deep breath and don't swallow everything. My IVF journey, when I went to do my own IVF, I took away everything. I let go. And the only focus was the IVF journey, myself and the IVF. That was it. I didn't let any other thing. I had my son at the time, that I didn't let any other thing enter that journey. And sometimes you shouldn't feel guilty when you need that time to just be in your own spiritual space to build. Like the bird, when the bird is nesting, they do all this. They're very focused on doing that journey, and you just have to be on that space, on that beautiful journey with you and your husband. And even if he's there to support you, even if he's there, he'll be there to support you, but he might not be there, because this journey is your mental journey, and you need to find Vivienne's own space to make this journey happen. Thank you so much, and I'll be catching up with you again very soon.
So that was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.